Hello, everybody. Star Performance Consulting presents Corporate Banters with DK. Today, we have a very special guest, Manish.bajoria. Manish is a chartered accountant by qualification and a person who has gained very unique and varied experience in Indian market based on his very successful stint in Unilever and Amazon. His team vouch for his leadership and mentoring skills, and his peers and industry seniors sings praise for his stupendous performance. Among many of his achievements, the most recent ones were launching new businesses like Jungly.com, Amazon Fashion, Advertising, and Amazon Pay in India as his CFO. I've always looked up to him for advice and coaching, and I'm sure I'll continue to do so. With that said, it is my true privilege and honor to kickstart this podcast series with Manish being his first guest. Manish, a very warm welcome to you, and thank you so much for your time.
Hey, thanks a lot, Deepak, for having me on your podcast. It really feels privileged for me, probably inaugurating your podcast, and I hope it works as a good omen for you. And morning and good evening and good afternoon to everybody who is listening at whichever part of the world. Thanks for having me and taking out time to listen to us.
You will, Manish. I mean, it is truly an honor to have you. Thank you so much. So let's get started without further ado. And I'll start with my first question on this. So, for the sake of our audience, just tell us a bit about your journey after you qualified as a chartered accountant and joined the, if I can say so, rat race.
I won't call it a rat race. I still feel it was one of the best thing I did, and if given a chance, I'll do that again.
Fair enough.
Great. So yes, the journey probably is. I don't think there's a lot of things which I can add up and say that this had some filmy story or anything like that. It was fairly simple, like any other normal person. I don't think I had a lot of clue when I was doing my standard 11, 12 that what will I do in my career. Since everybody was doing chartered accountancy, I also did enroll myself for chartered accountancy, and by God's grace and probably because of good friends like you guys, I was able to clear my CA. One thing which I would probably remind is when I was doing my chartered accountancy, there was something which all of us probably wanted to get rank, and I also wanted to get rank, and I was preparing for that. And it so happened that instead of getting a rank, I actually flunked in my CA finals. And this was probably the first time I've ever flunked in my life. And I actually thought like life is ended and probably this is it. I can't do much about it. And somehow I thought I'll stop studying, go back to my dad's business, which is a small town, and I'll probably do that. But somewhere it was my dad who actually pursued me and said like, okay, even if you want to leave your studies, why don't you attempt it next time? So
Mhm.
with all the reluctance, I went and did my exams, and somehow I got very good marks. So and I got marks which were probably equivalent to a rank or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's something which at that point of time, honestly, it looked like life is really bad and unfair
Mhm.
that I was studying for a rank I flung. But when I
Mhm.
look at a retrospective 17 years down the line, I actually feel it was probably a good thing. It
Mhm.
gave me a lesson of like nothing is permanent and you need not worry. So that's one thing I thought. While you wanted me to start your journey post CA, but I thought I'll talk about this
No,
particular.
fantastic. I think this is a very good input for the audience as well, that failures are really the stepping stone for any success, right? And it's quite critical to go through failures. And it was good that you kind of went through that pain early in your life. And perhaps that has given you a lot of new perspective, which many people who cleared in first attempt perhaps never had that.
Post CA, I got placed in Tata Sons,
Hmm.
and I started working with Tata Steel. It was closer to my home, so I joined there. It was a great stint. I really loved that place, and it was 2 years down the line that I don't know how somehow I got a call from Unilever India HUL, and they were looking to hire a lateral replacement. And for me, it was one of those things like redemption in life, because they generally would call only rank holders at the
Yeah,
interview stage. And
yeah,
since I had that grudge of failure and not getting that rank, I thought, wow, I have got a call, I should try it out. So
yeah,
probably that failure also helped me get there, because I was
yeah,
very clear that I need this rank. So
yeah.
I joined HUL, and typical of HUL fashion where you keep doing various stints. So I started with treasury, did
Hmm.
global treasury for HUL, where I was trying to consolidate a treasury business for around 35 countries where Unilever operated, and was trying to establish a global treasury center in Mumbai. So it was a great experience. Also learned how to manage people. I remember an incident where instead of selling some 150 million yen, I actually ended up selling 1.5 billion yen. Oh, and like early morning, the trader called me and said, you know what, your bank have gone overdraft. And I said, no, no, no way, the bank will be overdraft. We have sorted it out. And then when I
Mhm.
came to office, and those were the times where mobile was not that connected,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I was like, whoa, what have I done? And I again thought like life is gone. But again, I saw a huge leadership lesson is what I learned that day was actually
Mhm.
my boss didn't said anything to me. He said,
Mhm.
okay, this is the situation, let's solve for it. So
Yeah.
let's do a reverse trade, let's solve for overdraft, let's speak to people. And I was always expecting that he's going to erupt and he's going to like
Yeah.
throw me out of the job, and he didn't said anything that day.
Yeah.
Next day I came to office, he didn't said anything. For me that was like, what is happening? And
Brilliant.
I
Yeah.
couldn't tolerate it. I went to my boss and said like, do you want to speak? And you know, there's
Yeah.
nothing to speak. It happened, you didn't did it by deliberately. And I was like, it was a bad thing, it costed the company. He said, yes, then that's a problem with mechanism. It's actually a mechanism problem, that we didn't had a mechanism to check this out. It's not a personal problem. I got a huge lesson that day,
Yeah.
that yes,
Amazing.
that's how you look at it.
Yeah.
So, and HUL was great. So I worked for a couple of years with Treasury. Then I moved to Chennai, and I was
Mhm.
heading the commercial function for Chennai region or South region for HUL. It was the stint where actually I understood what HUL is and what are the core strength, how distributors work, what
Yeah.
are their ROI expectation, how do you manage them, and you have your head office which wants things to be done, and you have these distributors who are independent businessmen who are here to make money. So you
Yeah.
kind of have to need to balance both of them. And one fine day somebody called me and that said like, we had sent some auditors to a distributor in Bangalore, and the auditors partner called me and said, you know what, my auditors have been locked up.
Oh,
Distributor
really?
has locked them out. And like I called the distributor, he said like they were not listening and something happened, I've locked it, I don't know. Between me and my RSM, we had to rush to Bangalore and kind of manage them out. And like we said like, whatever needs to be done, let the auditors go out of this place. So it was scary, but yes, when I look back now, it does sound funny. That was the first time I also looked into digital transformation. Like one of the
Uh-huh.
things where we were trying to do was collect money. So HUL used to sell to distributors and collect money, and we were in the old phase where we were collecting. We had prepaid checks and we would deposit
Mhm.
checks and checks.
Yeah.
And that was, this was 2008 and 9. This was the first time we took away all the checks and we moved to digital mandates. So this was ours was the first branch which actually did that. And I really saw a huge benefit which came in, because we could remove manual work, we could remove manual errors, we could remove a lot of things which were not very productive just because of this digital transformation.
Sure.
So those were some of those things which very early I realized that they have like compounding benefit. It might not
Yeah.
look like those are benefit which are coming in, but once you do that, it really solves a lot of issues.
Yeah.
So did couple of years with that, and then I came back to Mumbai, and I started a role what we call used to call in HUL as category commercial. This is basically a PNL role, and I
Mm.
used to do the role for hair as a business, shampoos. It was like a independent PNL role where you and your business head are responsible for the top line and bottom line of the business. This
Mm.
was the role which probably was the first PNL stint for me. I
Mhm.
actually had to kind of manage top line and bottom line, and you
Yeah.
had a lot of stakeholders. You had supply chain guys, you had
Yeah.
procurement guys, you had
Yeah.
R&D guys, you had advertisement guys. Like everybody has their own KPIs, but then you
Yeah.
need to manage all of it,
Yeah.
understand the driver, and then drive that business. So
Yeah.
that was one strength which I really really cherish in my career.
Mm.
And we, God's grace, things worked out for me.
Mm.
We actually turned around that business. So that was something which was really, it's close to my heart. And then I moved to exports. This was 2013. Unilever had an export
Mhm.
business, and this was the first role where I was actually elevated, where I was reporting to the CFO. So that was a big thing for me. And it was a good role where you had to deal with so many countries, you have to deal
Yeah.
with so many distributors, and you have to manage 10 commercial units where you have to
Yeah.
manage. So Unilever all and said was great.
Mhm.
But at that point of time, I actually started wondering what to do next in life. I've
Mhm.
spent good amount of time, how should I think about career and opportunities?
Mhm.
Unilever had a lot of opportunities, but I started thinking about it. And this was also 2014 when digital revolution was happening. Flipkart was making a lot of news in India. They were
Mhm.
raising billions of dollars every year. The valuation was doubling up, and obviously everybody was amazed in terms of what was
Yeah.
happening. And
Yeah.
I too was stuck there. And at that point of time, one of my seniors at Levers was actually joining
Mm.
Amazon as the CFO of India. And I was talking to him, and he said like, if you are interested, let me know. And I said, but what's the role? He said, I don't know what is the role. I have also not yet joined, but if you think you are interested, I can talk and you can join, and we'll see, we'll figure it out something.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I took the plunge. By God's grace, it was probably a good decision that I took at that point of time. Amazon has been fascinating because Amazon per se has had a fascinating journey in last 8 years. I started with a business called jungly.com.
Mm,
And then I moved to Amazon Fashion, and last 6 years I've been working with Amazon Payments and Amazon Advertisement. These are two new businesses which Amazon was trying to launch in India, and they
mm,
were like poles apart but still correlated. So they had to build them from scratch, and it was a fascinating journey in terms of one, convincing the Amazon internal investors that this payments is the right thing to do. Second, like building from scratch how to build this business, how to look at this business, and playing all the hats of finance, from building to controllership to accountability to partnering.
yeah,
And over last 6 years, that has been the journey at Amazon Pay and Advertisement.
yeah.
Of late, I thought probably I've done another 8 years at Amazon, and probably I should think about what next. And that is when I thought of leaving Amazon and decide doing something of my own. As of now, I'm still figuring it out what to do.
No, no, fantastic. As the saying goes, fortune favors the brave. And in your entire journey, one thing which I've realized is that you have been really brave to take certain career move and decisions, and perhaps that's the reason it has paid off for you. So
I
fantastic. I mean,
completely
that's
agree.
very impressive.
Those career decisions have worked out, and also probably luck has favored me. So I am somebody who believes in luck. So probably that has also helped.
Yeah, touche. All right. So let's move on to our next question. What has been the most fascinating and challenging assignment in your career? Just tell us few learnings which you took away from such assignment.
Sure. I will probably talk about something which had a more recency effect, and I'll talk about Amazon Pay. This was one business which Amazon India was very keen to do in India. So, so
Mm,
that is probably one of the most fascinating journey. And the reason I would say it was fascinating was I had to actually think through why I'm doing this business, and I had to
mm,
convince the investor that why they should invest in this business, and
yeah.
then I had to actually work the details so that the 600 member or 700 member team are aligned to the right goals. So
Mm,
the role was very different. It was not like doing a partnership or just controllership. It was
yeah.
everything and much more, because we also had to manage investor, and we also had to work it out as what would be investor interested in, how do
Mhm,
we think about it, how do we standardize what we want to show him. It
mm,
was little different and difficult because it was internal Amazon investor. We couldn't talk about valuation and
mhm,
some of those metric which is generally prevalent in market. We had to show
mm,
them real cash flow metrics. And
mhm,
so and then there were a lot of things which we were talking about. So the challenge was, how do we standardize everything, build
mhm.
into one page summary which kind of become a muscle memory for investors to understand. Because
Right.
in a new business, what happens is everybody's so excited to talk about new things they are doing, they keep throwing to the investor new stuff, and that becomes very tough for investor to understand. So to
Yeah.
me, that was one big journey in terms of how do you simplify the narrative, and how do you
Mm,
bring one simple narrative which and you stick to that, so that investors start understanding and the external stakeholders start understanding.
yeah.
And then how do you convert that one page narrative or a simple narrative into an actionable for your team? Because while that might be high level, you need to convert into a very micro ground level things which teams can work on, and you need to make sure that is aligned. So to me,
Yeah.
that has been a big journey for me in terms of how do you kind of get that. And
Yeah.
I think the Amazon principle of focusing on input and looking at output is something which I really embraced. So
Mm,
we knew what we want to do, and we started discovering new inputs and started measuring them, and that has probably
yeah.
helped. So to me, that has been a big journey. I won't say it has been complete, but yes, that to me was one of the big thing which I thought we did a fairly decent job. We got funding, and we invested in the business, and the business has reached someplace.
Yeah. No, I think it's incredible because your story gives me two takeaways, right? As a finance people, traditionally we always talk numbers. And in fact, I wrote an article on that. What you are suggesting is that it's not important to talk numbers, it's important to make the numbers talk. And that can only happen when you have crafted the right story behind it. And the finance function has evolved much more than controllership and business partnering. It is more around how do you add value to the business by basically getting yourself immersed into the right business strategy and making the business successful. So CFO role is as good as running the business today as compared to basically a back-end person providing data and insights. Moving on, you have been in this FMCG e-commerce industry for 15 years now, right? And I think you kind of touched upon few of the areas, but if you can just summarize in like two or three things which you have seen has evolved in this sector over a period of time?
Sure. So I think what at least I have seen is, and I'll probably put a nuance. I think it has not changed a lot, but it is still evolved. I'll try and explain what I mean by that. In my mind, the customer expectations have evolved a lot. Uh, so customers are always dissatisfied, and customers would always need more. And the more you serve them, the more their expectation increase. And to me, that is what I have seen change a lot in last 15 years, from very early days where probably companies would do lip service on customer service and talk about that we will do it, but they don't care. They will sell the product to the distributor, and distributor will push the product to the secondary outlet, and then they would expect it will get sold off, to a place today where companies are paranoid about ratings and reviews and keep looking at it, what they're looking, and making sure the feedbacks are working out and making sure those are sorted. So to me, I've seen that journey. While it was always there, people knew it, but the more the customers have been served and more customers have become aware, their needs have evolved. And companies which have done well in adopting that need and adopting themselves to feedbacks, review, rating, and the more customers have got access and the more people are companies are able to know them, the companies have evolved themselves. And that is something which I have seen changes. You can no longer assume that I build a good product and people will buy. You need to keep understanding customer and keep getting feedback.
Yeah, sure. And I'm assuming that given that now huge amount of data is available, and with the advent of digitization and big data, many large companies at least would be making use of those. And based on the analytics, they would be moving in that direction. So that would have definitely evolved in my mind over a period of last 10 to 15 years. What's your view on that?
No, it has evolved, but at the same time, as they say, data is something you can make it work the way you want it to work. And
Exactly. Yeah.
hence it's important that you can feel good that I have data and I have done some analysis and it tells
Mhm.
me what I need to do. But you need to be connected to the ground. You need to smell the numbers, because data is famous for giving you whatever you want it to tell
Yeah.
you, right? So it's very important that while you should use data analytics and understand, you should also have a sense on the ground and,
Yeah.
and understand the number better. In my mind, finance again can play a big role where they can standardize how to look at it.
Absolutely. Let's move on to our next question. In India right now, I mean, I think there are startups which are springing up in every corner, right? And especially in the e-commerce space. I mean, there's so many startups doing different things in e-commerce. And I think the basic premise still remains the same, which is selling goods online. But I'm assuming there must be some differences. So, what's your view? Why there are so many startups which are coming up? What kind of differentiation they are bringing on the table? What is in it for them to basically kind of start a new venture which are in similar lines to the other e-commerce companies?
See, Deepak, one thing I learned at Amazon, and I keep probably as a broken record will keep telling you this: customers are always dissatisfied.
Mm,
Customers would always look for the next best option, and it's not a bad thing. You and I as a customer would also do that, right?
mm,
So you cannot rely on your laurels and say that, what, I did the great this product,
mm,
and now customer will stick to me and there's loyalty. There's nothing called customer loyalty. Customers are loyal till the time you serve them best,
mm,
right? And customer look for basically three things, and these three things will never change. Customer will look for best selection,
mm,
best pricing, best convenience, be it
mm,
convenience of delivery, be it convenience of experience of
mm,
ordering.
mm,
These are three things which in my mind will never change, and it
mm,
will never change either geographically or even after 20 years. This thing will be relevant. You
mm.
and I as a customer would always want all the best selection,
Yeah,
whether it's curated or the maximum selection. You and I would want to buy at a cheapest price, and you and I would want it to be at the best convenience possible, right?
yeah,
So if these three things are constant, as long as companies are able to do a better job on any of these three things, in my mind they will survive.
got it.
And it's a good thing for customer, it's a good thing for economy, because it will lead better customer experience, it will lead market to expand, and it gives an opportunity for everybody. If I have a startup idea and I think I can deliver a better selection or a better pricing or a better convenience than, say, a Flipkart or an Amazon, today is the world where actually you get a privilege where you can actually try it out.
And that brings me to my next point. With market being so overcrowded, do you really see a possibility of consolidation in the market where there will be a lot of M&A activity going into next decade or so?
it's difficult to comment on that side, but because it's not only about crowded market, there are a lot of other reasons why consolidation can happen.
Mm-hmm.
It can be external factor, like what we are seeing a little bit now, like a little funding winter which is happening. And if
Mm-hmm.
the companies don't have not been able to solve for the basics, like a sustainable pricing, a good reason why customer come to you, they will struggle to survive. They will survive till the time they have cash in the bank, or till the
Mm-hmm.
time their investors are ready to invest. And if that is not happening, then obviously consolidation will happen. So in
Sure.
my mind, it's not about crowded, it's about sustainability. If they are not able to sustain it, consolidation will happen, and people will try and bring synergies so that they can work it out. So some consolidation has to happen. It's a cycle. There will a lot of companies which will
Yeah.
come up, and then some will find a way to crack that code, some will not, and people who will not probably will get either extend or consolidated and work it out.
Oh, fantastic. Fair point, Manish. So interesting, Manish. So far, I think you have kind of covered e-commerce, and I think it has been an incredible insight for all of us. So moving on from e-commerce, I want to talk about digitization, which you touched upon a bit in your other areas, especially in 2008 and 9 when you saw the digitization trend. But so I'll tell you an interesting story. I was in India after a couple of years last December. So during COVID, I could not go to India, and what I saw was amazing. The amount of digitization which I saw in India during COVID times was phenomenal. I was trying to pay cash to a taxi driver, and he looked at me as if I've come from Mars. You know, what I mean? And that's how it was. I mean, we were paying $5, $10 through whatever Paytm, Google Pay, and there was not one option. There were multiple options, right? So, what do you think are the reasons behind such a huge, incredible progress in India, especially around digitization?
Sure. I assume you're talking about the payments part of it. So while we have seen digitalization across things, but yes, payment is one space where probably India is one of the most digitalized country today, where everybody is accepting digital payments, and there has been a lot of effort which the government, I would say, it has been a combined effort of government, the NPCI, RBI, and a lot of companies which have come in the space and which has worked it out. And there have been a lot of good things which has happened. I guess everybody knows about how UPI has done. And
Mhm.
again, I would think that the reason why it has picked up and why it has gone the way it has gone is probably somebody actually understood the pain point and has solved for the pain point. See, for long number of years, people were trying to sell the merchant the POS machine, and
Yeah,
people were trying to sell credit card to customers, and they were trying assuming that once you have cards, once one should have the POS machine, they
yeah,
will start using it and that will start happening.
yeah.
But one of the big thing in India is, and probably that's a little different than probably how US and other countries is,
Hmm.
there are a lot of mom and pop stores, and typically these mom and pop stores don't enjoy a very high margin like a modern store gets, like a Walmart would get in US, or a Tesco would get in US, right? So these stores have like 7-8% margin, and the reason why these stores run is because they work on a lot of disguise employment, they work on their own things, and they themselves work and they kind of
Hmm.
manage within that margin. And one of the big issue with they have is they cannot afford a 2% MDR or a cost of payment to the bank. And that
Hmm.
was one reason why POS machines, in spite of all the effort, were not crossing say 2 to 3 million or 4 million POS machine across India. I think somebody understood the pain point and actually made
Hmm.
UPI as zero cost. Once it became zero cost, it becomes very easy for merchant to accept it, because now it was not costing them, it was not taking away a part of their margin, and it become
Oh,
easy for them to adopt. So that's just one reason. I'm just telling you that there have been a lot of similar reasons why this has got adopted, because it's never one reason why things get adopted so much, but I think it's multiple reasons. But this to me is one reason why merchants picked it up. Why consumers picked it up was, I guess, the UX of the whole instrument was very easy. It's not that you have to carry something, or you have to remember 30 things, and or you have to wait for an OTP to happen. It's a static password which people can just scan and make a payment. So it has
yeah,
worked. It also worked with the internet democratization within India,
yeah.
because the Geo
Mhm.
came in and everybody got a smartphone. Internet prices in India is probably the cheapest in the world.
Yep.
And so that's what I would say, Deepak. It has been a combination of factor.
Mm.
Government has helped, RBI has helped, somebody understood the pain point, somebody solved the UX, and somebody brought the internet cheap. And at the same time, there were a lot of companies like Amazon, Google, Paytm, PhonePe, who actually went ahead and invested in this business
Yeah.
without even understanding what the business model will be, because the hope was that if millions and millions of customers adopt it, somewhere they will be able to build a business around it. And it's really amazing. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, it looks like it's this is a topic in itself, and perhaps we need to do another podcast to discuss and delve
I
into this
completely
more.
agree.
Right? So moving on from now, companies and sectors and everything. Let's talk about talent, right? I mean, you have been a leader for a long time now. I mean, companies like Tata Steel, Unilever, Amazon, they build leaders at the end of the day, right? And you manage really big teams, right? One of the things which I've been hearing recently, that in India, people are really finding hard to get resources, and resources are making frequent changes. Now, as a leader, did you really face that? Are you seeing that trend? And what, in your opinion, as an employer, companies need to do something different to retain the talent, if there is actually an exodus of talent out of the company?
Sure. Again, my view might be a little contrarian. I feel the only thing you need to do is being human. If you can be human to your people and not treat them as resources, but as humans, probably it will solve a lot of
Amazing
problems.
point. No, I absolutely agree. Yeah.
Companies tend to start treating them as resources, and to me, that is probably something which doesn't work. So as
Mm,
long as you treat them as human, respect them, give them opportunities, it works. There will be phases where people will move on as new technologies coming, as new startups are coming. uh,
mhm.
the the really skilled talent is limited in India, so you will see some kind of thing. There was a big great resignation. It's not only India, across the world, that's
Yeah.
phenomena which is happening post pandemic, where people have realized that they want to do something different in life. I don't think anybody can change that. Those will be some general trend which will happen. To me,
Mm,
the ways companies will have to manage is just keep doing the basics, keep doing the right things. There will be few people who will move out, and it's good for people, organization as well. Honestly, we need to build a culture, and I think that is something which I learned at Levers, that you need to build your organization, your systems and process, where it is not people dependent. You love them, you work with them, but you also make them resilient, so that as people move on, there is a big second level team which is ready to pick up the challenge. As long
absolutely.
as you build that out, and I think large companies do it well. and
Yeah.
and probably this is one area where startups need to think about it, that they
Yeah.
cannot just be founder dependent. Founder cannot do everything, and they need to build that team out.
Yeah.
People will come in, people will move on. End of the day, people are also consumers, and we talked about
Yeah.
consumers will always be dissatisfied. So there
Yeah.
will be always, you cannot expect that they will be always loyal, and it's wrong to expect, right?
Mm.
They're not married to us, so I think it's okay
Even
for
wife
people to
is nowadays, or husband is
so
as well.
so in my mind, it's okay for people to think about their careers and think about what is best for them. As long as companies are doing two things: treat them with respect, give them opportunities, and be fair to them, I think there's a fair chance that people will stick and people will do a decent work with them. And as long as they keep building mechanism where they're not people dependent and keep building second level, third level team, it will work out.
Fair point. Absolutely fair point. Have you seen any change in the way you manage your talent in last 2 decades of your leadership career?
Yes, definitely. One thing which I have noticed, and I wish I could have done this 20 years back, is I think the self awareness which the current young generation has is probably I didn't had 20 years back, and probably people,
Mm.
my friends, didn't had
Yeah.
at that point of time. Maybe it's a phase of life where we were coming from very middle class background, and we wanted to secure our life, and we
Yeah.
were like probably ready to do anything and everything to ensure that we do a good job, we get a right
Mm.
rating, we build our career, we look for our next promotion, and we cement our job, and secure our life, and secure our lifestyle. So
Yeah.
that was something which was big thing, and I don't think, at least at that point of time, for me and many of my friends, the thought of being a lot more self aware and lot more, this is what I need, and it's not, job is not everything, was not something which was there at that point of time. But today, when I look at youngsters, I feel a little jealous. They're
Yeah.
so self aware, they're so understanding of it, that this is not life. So while job is good, they want to do job, but it's not the life, and they want to explore the world, they want to take a break, they want to do a lot of things. They're not so paranoid about that they have to get a promotion in the job, and they have to do
Yeah.
well. While
Yeah.
they want to do well, and they do their best. But at the same time, if they think doesn't work out, it's okay. Maybe it's also a life stage where they don't have to worry about their lifestyle. Their parents have kind of secured the lifestyle, so for them they can afford it. And maybe for us it was not. I don't know what's the reason, but that's something which I see a big change. And it means you need to manage your people very differently.
Yeah.
My boss at 20 years back could have told me anything, and I would have probably stick to job and make
Yeah.
sure that he does well. But in today's world, you have to give him more respect as an individual and work with them, and accept what he brings in and what he doesn't bring in, and work around with that. So to me, that has changed a lot, and it's a good thing. I wish I would have started my career at this stage of life,
Yeah.
but so it is.
No, you're absolutely right. And more than parents basically giving a secure life, I think the millennials, one big change is the amount of opportunities and the exposure to various things which they have.
I agree. Right.
20 years back, we did not have same mobile phone, same internet. I mean, I remember I created my first Gmail account after I joined my job. I mean, of course, we could have created Hotmail account during college days, but how many people were really interacting on emails, right? We still remember the telephone numbers of each and every individual because we didn't have mobile phone to save the numbers, right?
Yeah, I remember I bought my first mobile phone after I cleared my chartered accountancy.
Yeah,
So
exactly, right. Even I bought perhaps a year before that when I was doing my internship or article
you're
as
always the rich guy.
yeah, of course. Of course. Now, what would be your advice to the new generation who are trying to enter the corporate world or basically trying to do something of their own?
The way I would think is, and if I were to give advice to myself in the current generation, I would only say that try and understand the business better, irrespective of whatever role you get into. You
Yeah.
need to get a full macro view of what is the business trying to do. I see
Mm.
a lot of people getting stuck to their role and their part of the thing and not getting a full picture. And I feel that they are doing disservice to themselves when they don't do that, because they don't get a full picture and they don't understand why is what is happening. And in my mind, it is always good to spend a little more time, get a macro picture, get a good understanding of it, and listen to people, because and that will help them understand it better, and in my mind that will help them do better.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. What has been the best career advice you have received in your life?
I'll give you one advice which I have been using it for a lot of people who come to me. This was a gentleman who was my senior at Levers, then he moved on, and today he is the CFO of a very large organization in India. And I was actually deliberating when I was leaving HUL, or when I was thinking of leaving HUL, as what should I do? It's a very
Mhm.
tough decision at that point of time for me. Like, should I stay at HUL? My boss was actually
Yeah.
promising me a promotion and everything, or
Mhm.
should I think about Amazon, or should I think about two more opportunities which I had
Mhm.
from various places, and I had to decide which role or what should I pick. And I had made a mess of myself. I didn't know. I wrote everything on a piece of paper, and I was thinking this, and all of it. And I was so confused. I actually just ended up calling this person and said, Dada, please help. I really don't know what to do and how to decide. And I thought this was one of the best advice which I got. I still remember that. What he told me was this, that you know what, Manish, all of us are products, and we are trying to sell ourselves in the market, and we are trying to build ourselves in the market so that we can sell ourselves better.
Mhm.
So one thing which might help you decide is, think about yourself as the recruiter after 5 years, and you are about to recruit an individual, and you get a CV of a
Mhm.
Manish Bajoria who has worked for 12 years, 2 years in Tata Steel, 12 years, 8 years in HUL, and 4 years at Amazon.
Mhm.
Or you have got a CV of a Manish Bajoria who's worked for 2 years in in Tata Steel, and 12 years in Amazon and HUL if you continue with that job. Or you got a CV of a Manish Bajoria who has worked for 2 years at Tata Steel and 8 years at HUL and 4 years in the other opportunity. And if you were the recruiter, which CV would you like?
Sure.
And maybe that can help you decide that what you want to do. I actually found it's simple advice. I found it very useful to decide, because it makes things a lot more clearer to me that
Absolutely.
maybe this kind of an experience is something I as a recruiter will love, and that probably helped me decide.
No, no, absolutely great advice. I mean, in fact, if somebody is trying to enter the corporate world, for them as well, this can be a great advice because how a recruiter would evaluate their resume 5 years down the line. Like I have never thought in that way. I mean, whenever I have kind of decided about my jobs, right? I mean, whenever the opportunity came, I just picked it up based on my gut feeling. But great advice. So that's all what I had, Manish. But what I'm going to do is we are going to finish with a rapid fire round, perhaps less than 1 minute. And I need 1 to 2 word answer, right? Whatever comes to your mind, right? Just
Okay.
go with it, with the flow.
I'll try, but it sounds difficult.
You don't need to think too much. And there will be only 5 questions, right? Make it as fun as you can. So, for number one, what's your passion?
uh Kids. I really spend a lot of time with kids, and like I'm the joker at house, so I call all my kids friend and I spend a lot of time with them. So that's something which I really love, and I can spend like hours and hours, days with the kids, not doing anything else.
Fantastic. What's your favorite gadget?
Currently, probably my Apple iWatch. I've started running, so it has worked me for me. So that's something which I've been fascinated to.
Beach or mountain?
Mountains,
Bike or car?
bike,
Movies or books?
books.
Fantastic. That's all what I had, Manish. It was such a privilege talking to you. Yeah, I mean, you really gave good insights, fantastic insights. I'm sure all the audience are going to love what you said. And there was a lot of key takeaways, I mean, based on the discussion we had. I mean, not only from the industry perspective, the way you think about your career, how you can make changes in terms of talent management, in terms of what's going on in India, in terms of market. Amazing conversation. I could not have asked for a better start to my podcast series. So thank you so much again for your time. Really appreciate your time, and thanks for kind of indulging with me. I know I've been asking too many things to you, but you have been sporting enough to answer everything. So thank you so much.
Th- Thanks, Deepak. I do hope it is worth the time for people to listen to. And if anybody can make um, takes any insight from it and it helps them, I would be more than happy. And if there's anything, I'll probably share my email address in the comments. So, or you can put there if somebody wants to reach out, basis certain specific thing they want to know. I'm more than happy to help them. I'm privileged that you found it useful and you gave me the opportunity to start your podcast. So I hope it does very, very well. Best wishes to you and your team.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Mani.
you.
Thank you.